This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward. On this episode, Shane, let's talk about carrier relations. Now, a few years ago, I went and visited one of our agents, and I remember sitting in his office, and he was sharing with me that he just didn't have time to visit with carrier reps, that he was too busy, that he actually would just let them sit in his lobby until he left. And this is one of the same agents that now I am hearing complaining about losing carriers. He's not getting the carriers that he needs, etc. Now, I am not saying that this is a cause and effect situation, but we need carriers right now a little more than they think that we need us.
This is an overarching thing, and I know those types of agents as well. It's a three-pronged relationship. It's you, your clients, and the insurance carrier partner. And you need all three. If we're not taking the risk, we're not developing the product, we're not manufacturers, we're retailers. And we've got to have product. And this is the part that a lot of, I'm going to get on the soapbox again, of salespeople not making the full transition to business ownership. That is a salesperson type of statement. The example that you led with, they don't have time for the carrier rep. Then that means that you don't want to have an insurance agency. That means that you don't want to have a business because they are the product. They're the thing that you're selling. Unless you plan to start your own insurance company and be a direct writer, then you need carriers, you need markets, you need relationships out there. Agency networks, which we run as well, assist with this process, but we've become a firm believer that agency networks should not hide the agent from the carrier or the carrier from the agent. We think that there should be a symbiotic relationship there. And we do some things transparently, and we make it a point that we want our partner agents working with our carrier partners and so forth. If you're not a part of an agency network, then you have direct contracts with these carrier partners. And it becomes even more vital that you are in an ongoing relationship and you make time for your carrier partners. I will put it like this. There's an old saying, a lot of people have it in their houses, marriage takes three, you, your spouse, and God. If you leave God out of a marriage, then it's going to struggle. And that's this belief that I have. And I will take it to that level. You're not going to leave your client out of the relationship. It's you, the agent, it's your client. But there's a third element in this relationship, the carrier, the market, that's going to provide the product for you to solve the problem that your client has. And if you take that carrier partner out of the equation, then what do you have? It works the same way for the carriers. Unless they're a direct writer, they need you or the system breaks down.
Right now, face-to-face time with carriers, I see as invaluable. What can agents do to understand what the carrier needs, to have those conversations and figure out how to make the relationship mutually beneficial?
One of our core values is to make it personal, which means by our own internal definition of put yourself in their shoes. Just look at the numbers, the industry numbers, the numbers that the carrier will produce. It's a bloodbath. Carriers are losing their tail. We have to make it personal, put ourselves in the carrier's shoes, and understand that we need them to be successful financially, and they're not being successful financially. That's step one to me, is how do we help you, Mr. or Mrs. Carrier, get back in the black and turn a profit again? What can we do to do our part? Putting ourselves in their shoes is step one, and understanding that some of the decisions that they're making, whether you agree or disagree with the decisions, the reality of it is most agency owners, most independent agencies don't have enough information to really debate the decisions that the carrier's making, whether it's slowing down new business, whether it's underwriting changes, whether it's closing zip codes or geographic areas where they're willing to take on new business. We don't understand carrier side enough to really question the decision they're making unless we're willing to put ourselves in their shoes and see it through the lens from their side. Now, I have an opinion that you cannot shrink yourself to profitability, Mr. or Mrs. Carrier out there. I do understand that you need to slow growth and you need to manage that exposure, but shrinking to profitability has never worked. But agencies need to look at things through the lens of that carrier, just like they look at things through the lens of their clients and through the lens of their own operations. And we have to understand that there's going to be measures that are going to be taken. And some of those measures we need to get on board with. We need to not be quick to remarket an account, because if retention is shrinking within that particular carrier, that carrier is not climbing towards profitability and we're not helping. And so I know there's a limit to that. You don't want to lose a client, etc. But we need to look at our processes and making sure that our processes are not actually hurting our companies and help them restore profitability as quickly as possible. Then things can get back to normal and we're doing our part. I don't see a lot of agents taking that perspective. I see a lot of agents getting mad and angry and frustrated. And when that's happening, I see that they're looking through their singular tunnel vision lens and they're not looking through the big picture of partnership.
You mean I shouldn't take the information from the angry people that I am seeing in all of the online Facebook groups as the truth and nothing but the truth? But there's other ways to do this?
There are other ways to do this. This is what's interesting to me that I will say out loud. We have the benefit as a larger premium distributing organization, agency network, retail operation, that maybe is a different lens than the average independent agencies. Most independent agencies, 86, 87% of independent agencies out there have less than about 7 or 8 employees. Okay. So that by nature means that out of the 36 to 38,000 independent agencies in the marketplace, roughly 86% or whatever the math on that is, 30,000 of them don't have the opportunity to be in a room with the C levels of national insurance carriers on a regular basis, or be in a room with larger 25, 30, 50, 100 plus employee agencies. With that context, let me say this. The carrier relationship and carrier struggles that I see or hear about in these social media groups are coming from the salesperson that has yet to find their way over to business ownership. And they're mad because they can't sell anything. But when you get into that smaller room of people, when you get into that realm and you talk to those business owners, everything is being looked at differently. It's harder. It's a little bit of extra work, but they understand that what we're trying to do is help our insurance carriers regain profitability. And at the same time, our insurance carriers are really trying to help us solve problems for our clients as best that they can. We're trying to both balance those things. And the world just looks and feels different when you're in the room with agency business owners versus the sales mindset. And you may be sitting there going, well, you jerk. But that's the whole point of our podcast, is to help captive agencies become free and move to the independent agency system and help independent agency move and transition to ownership.
My reaction wasn't to think of you as a jerk. My reaction was, okay, how do I get a chair at that table? Or can I bring my own chair? How do I make that happen?
It's a long road and it takes a lot of diplomacy. If you thought diplomacy was only for governments and nation states and lobbyists, then you've misunderstood the business that you decided to get into. Relationships with carriers is about diplomacy, professionalism. It starts there. It starts with being willing to serve, getting involved within your local agent association, being willing to serve within an agent council. Shane, how do I get invited to serve on an agent council? It starts with how you treat your marketing rep. your sales rep. If you treat that rep as second-class citizen and you let them sit in your waiting room for hours instead of seeing them, if you no-show a Zoom meeting or show a visit because you, quote, don't have time, then you don't deserve a seat at that table. There's a diplomacy process here of getting along, compromising, being a negotiator. Being a negotiator doesn't mean being harsh or getting your way. That's not what this comes down to. And if you're easy to work with in terms of professionalism, if you are a joy to meet with, then they're going to say, oh, he might be a great candidate in the next year or two when so-and-so rolls off the agent council. I'm going to suggest to my boss that we put him or her in the pool of people that we're thinking about inviting to serve on that council. And it just keeps going from there.
If you're a masterclass subscriber or if you're interested in this idea, there is a fantastic masterclass course with Madeline Albright and Condoleezza Rice teaching diplomacy for business. That is just an absolutely extraordinary way to spend an hour and a half if you're in this position.
It starts with being a good human. And society has got us into this toxicity thing, this political divide has got us down this path where we're moving further apart, not closer together. There's a lot here beyond our business ownership that we could even go down. If we think that we can be different by flipping a switch all of a sudden, we're just an angry human and we're frustrated and we're mad at the world. And then all of a sudden we meet with our marketing rep from one of our top companies and we think we're going to be able to look and feel different. You're wrong. I don't think we shift that quickly and it comes across even in times where we think we're hiding it. And it just starts with how we're treating our spouse, how we're treating each other. And then it boils over into that becomes the natural thing that we do. The last year and a half, hug a CSR and an account manager because they're on the front line feeling the pain of the frustrated consumer. Hug a insurance company marketing rep or territory manager because they're feeling it from angry agents. And that's a shame. They're human beings. They're doing their job. They're doing the best they can do with what they've been told they have to deliver. The least we can do is put ourselves in their shoes and understand what they're going through. And that's why I say it starts with this foundation of just being a better human being and being better at how we relate to people and the professionalism that's required in this business ownership role.
The movement toward being nice brings me great joy. I am 100% behind Gary Vee and the whole Be Nice movement. This is fantastic. That being said, I am hearing from so many of our partners, from agents in other places, that the expectations that carriers are coming to them with are practically impossible. How do we manage expectations of carriers as an agency owner?
I'm going to take the niceness comment for a second and start there. What's really interesting about that is depending on what part of the country you're in, be nice can mean some different things. But Gary Vee, I believe, is a New Yorker. And nice in New York is going to be different than nice in East Texas. Nice can have a negative connotation to it. It can have a give in connotation to it. It can have a just do what we are saying connotation to it. I want to be clear that I am not advocating that being professional and being a good human means that you have to be a doormat. It doesn't mean that you can't have a solid response, a logical question of a response. That's warranted here. That's being a business owner. I don't think that the answer to the independent agent business owner is to be a doormat to the carrier's request. It's to understand where the carrier's coming from, why they want this to happen, why they need this to happen, and have it logically explained professionally, and then respond to that professionally. That doesn't mean it's, oh, okay, I'll figure out a way to do this. That's not the answer. If there is an impossible ask by a carrier partner, then you need to be able to honestly and in the right tone ask the question of how am I supposed to accomplish that? How can you help me accomplish that? Whatever the request that's being asked. What you may discover, as I have discovered many times, is that I truly did not understand the thing I was doing to the carrier partner with my actions. The other side of this, and the marketing rep may not have it right. They may have misunderstood the request from their superiors. They may not be able to explain it well. And questions from you professionally, not yelling at them, but professionally asking questions that are intelligent and thought-provoking may put the carrier rep in a position where they are asking you to do something they don't even understand themselves. Understand that they're just trying to do their job and you're a business owner. They're a salaried employee, you're a business owner. Most of the time, that's the case. Understand that you've got to work through them to get to the place of really what's being asked of me. And there may be somewhere up the totem pole where that's not at all what's being asked of you, but it's been misinterpreted. It's now being miscommunicated. And I've yet to have a situation where a company asked us to do something where I didn't ask questions and eventually land with why they wanted to do something was necessary. My story is long time ago, Ohio Casualty, who's no longer with us, purchased by Liberty Mutual, came into our office and told us that they really wanted to write body shops. They were hot for body shops, go market body shops. So we gathered up all of our resources and we started going out and marketing body shops. And we bring body shop after body shop to their underwriters. And we got decline after decline. Why are y'all declining all of our body shops? Because we don't want to write body shops that have paint booths.
Excuse me?
We wanted to write body shops that did not do any painting or repainting. I don't know where those body shops exist, but they didn't exist in Texas. And so the reps were sent out with directives. Nobody asked the question. Nobody asked the underwriter and product manager what the requirements were. It's just, we want to write all these body shops, but they didn't want to write body shops with paint booths. That doesn't exist. I always lean on that story for everyone that's coming in your doors and telling you things, fully understands even the implication of their own world, let alone the implication of your business owner world. And that comes back to us to be the better human, the bigger person, the smarter person, to say, okay, deep breath, everybody, let's think about this. Let's ask the professional question with the professional tone. We don't have any of those. So can we rethink this underwriting? Can we have a conversation with underwriting and the product manager to understand exactly what kind of body shop you think is out there?
We're not saying you have to be a Pollyanna. We're not saying that every day is a perfect day. But you know when you're having a bad day. You know it when you wake up and you're having a bad day. If you have a meeting that day with a carrier rep, it may not be the best day to ask questions. It may be one of those days to have a more personal conversation. It may be one of those days to listen and ask the follow-up questions later. And I don't see anything wrong with that, because you're still getting that time. I actually think it's a really good idea to take it to that little bit of a personal level, because it's a lot harder to say no to someone when they know you personally than just in a professional way.
It's okay to say as an agency owner, okay, help me understand. I don't understand what it is you're asking. Is repeat what's being asked of you. What you're asking is, you're saying I can't write any more home without writing a companion auto policy. Have you looked at your auto rates? Do you know where you're at with your auto rates? That's a question that I'm hearing more and more. The rates are not where they are. At the same time, you better have your game on as an agent that you better really know where their rates are too. You can't look at this through this lens of, I tried to quote them against State Farm and I wasn't competitive 3 times. It's not a sample size. And we do that as salespeople too. Understand that you have to try to do what they're asking you to do, develop the sample size, show the evidence, and say, how do I do this? Tell me. I am willing. I will do exactly what you're asking me to do, but I need help. That's what they're there for. If you're willing to work and you're professional about it, it's how you get a seat at the table.
Let's look at this from a different perspective. Each of our carriers have made huge investments in community outreach programs, in giving back to the communities they're in. Volunteering, showing up for those community events that are carrier sponsored could be huge.
Especially if it aligns with something that you're interested in. That's great. Making it personal means getting to know people, humanizing them. Hey, newsflash, we've learned in the partner network world, in the agency network world, it's really easy for a sales director manager, 2 or 3 levels above the field rep, to say no to an appointment when they don't know that person. But then when they meet them face to face at a conference, at a trade show, at an industry event, at whatever, and they put a face with the name and they get to talking with that person, and this is a good person, this is somebody I might have been friends with in a different life or whatever, and all of a sudden we've humanized it and we've gotten out from behind the phone or the screen, and this agency owner is a wife with a working husband and kids or whatever, or a single mom or a widower who's just trying to survive with the boys and teach them right with mom gone. There's so many different aspects of life, and all of a sudden there's a story there and it humanizes it, and I want to do business with them. That's not what we've been doing. The COVID effect of hiding out and not being face to face, and we've lost relationship skills. And that's the theme that's coming out in this podcast today. Is it's about getting better at that and being better at the relationship side of this thing. And there's a huge win for those agents that get it.
At the beginning of our podcast, I told the story of the agent that, to use your very eloquent term, was a turd to some carrier reps. If you were that guy today, what would it take to mend the relationships that need to be mended?
Own it. Admit fault. Be better. And that's a little bit of an uphill battle because now the tide has shifted. Carriers don't want to give appointments right now in just about any state across the country. Nobody wants to grow. There's a few market states out there where people want to grow, but there's a lot of typical growth states that they want to either shrink in that state or they want to be neutral in that state. You have to own those previous mistakes. Don't beg. I'm talking about just owning the mistake. That's professional. That's respectful. Understand that doesn't mean that there's still not consequences to that mistake from the past. We think that owning the mistake means that there's no consequence. You're probably not getting the appointment or the reappointment right now. But what you're doing is you're starting to build the bridge of mending that relationship. And when we come out of this market cycle, you're going to be in a much better place. So you're making an investment of effort that might help you in some cases short term, but there's absolutely the help coming in the long term if you can shift that cycle. That's hard to do. There's a lot of pride in agency owners and in business owners. That pride has to be let go of. It's going to get in our way, and we got to come to terms with that we got to be able to let some of that pride go and move things forward with some ownership of things that we said or did.
And the longer it goes, the harder it is to do.
Absolutely. The older you get, the harder it is to do.
I don't know about that.
It is.
I disagree with that one. Yeah, I totally disagree with that.
It just keeps building, and the wall keeps getting thicker. I'm not saying it's an older person problem. I'm saying if you're 25 and make that mistake, it's harder at 45 than it is at 35.
Yeah, I don't see it that way.
Okay.
I knew everything when I was 25. Now that I'm in my 40s, I know nothing. And so I can look back and see lots of mistakes that I made when I was younger. And if I have the opportunity to fix that or say something or whatever, I'm going to do that in a heartbeat now. So I have a very different perspective on that.
I'll go with you on that. But there is a segment of the population that the pride wall becomes so thick that they can't say that. And that's really the segment that I'm talking about. There's an angrier everyday mentality. There's a frustration. And I really think it's more than their business. I just think it's the way they live their life. It's just who they are. But that's where I'm going, is that pride gets bigger and bigger. And I know for me, I'm like you. I'm the first to tell you I was the dumbest guy on the block at 25, even though I thought I was the smartest guy on the block. I see that now, but there are people out there that struggle with these types of diplomacy relationships, especially with carriers, reps, who don't see it that way. It's devastating to me for our industry, for our channel, if you have this agent that treats this younger marketing rep a doormat. And I know that goes on because I hear it from our carrier partners. And that's that friction that I'm after. I don't really see that from the really high quality agents. I see that from the agents who are in this constant churn and struggle. And a market like this is going to create an environment where they're going to lose lots of carriers. They're going to be the first on the chopping block for their appointments. And when they lose an appointment, they're not getting it back. That's the thing that these guys have to do some course correcting and think about where they're at, because this market is different. It's not going to correct all the way back. It's going to correct a little bit, but it's not going to correct back to where we were 6 or 7 years ago.
I'm going to leave us today with this quote from Coach Doug Williams: "Never give up, never give in, and when the upper hand is ours, may we have the ability to handle the win with the dignity that we absorb the loss."
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now, or learn more at IAForward.com.